Thank you. Good afternoon, Mark Scheipmeyer, the city's hearing examiner. I've been asked to convene two public hearings today. The first of which is identified as Henderson 94. It's an application for preliminary plat and site plan approval. It bears the city's case number TUM-23-0604. The owner of the property is Alito Properties, and it is represented by Chris Carlson of Haddon Godat Pantier. And it is, I'll have Mr. Brook, I'm sorry, it's at 7501 Henderson Boulevard Southeast in the city, seeking development of 9.22 acres into an 11 lot development consisting of 10 townhomes, and the 11th lot for construction of 84 apartments. In advance of today's hearing, I've received the staff report authored by Mr. Baruch. I've reviewed it in its entirety. With the staff report came a number of reports and studies, all of which I have examined and am familiar with, and also with all of the public comment received to date, which was made both in response to the initial notice, response to SEPA, and in response to the notice of this hearing. All of that public comment I have received, or I have reviewed in advance of today's hearing. I also received a notice from Mr. Baruch yesterday that there were some technical changes proposed in the conditions of recommended approval, and I have reviewed those proposed changes. And then finally, I received an email from the city today that I believe is related to this project, attaching a comment from Bonnie Blessing. It was one of three Ms. Blessing submitted during the day, but I believe
that's for the other project, actually, not this one.
All three are?
Okay.
Yep. The third one wasn't clear.
Yeah, I apologize for that.
Okay, it didn't identify property. All right.
Yeah.
So those are the only additions then to the record so far. So the purpose of today's hearing is threefold. It's to hear first from city staff, presumably Mr. Baruch and perhaps others, followed then by an opportunity for the applicant, perhaps again through Mr. Carlson, to respond to the city's recommendations. And then once those two presentations have been completed, to then hear from the public. Again, if you were a member of the public who presented written comments in advance, I have reviewed those comments. That doesn't mean you can't say them again, but just understand that if you submitted something to the city, I have carefully reviewed it in advance. All those who do wish to testify today, including both the city staff and the representative for the applicant, will do so under oath. And so let's get us underway. Mr. Baruch, let's have you sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Good afternoon. My name is Alex Baruch. I'm a senior planner with the City of Tumwater. Before you this afternoon is a request to subdivide a 9.22 acre property into 10 townhome lots and one 84-unit apartment complex through the preliminary plat and site plan review process. The property is located at 7501 Henderson Boulevard Southeast. It's zoned multifamily medium density residential, rectangular in shape, relatively flat, and slopes towards the wetland on the adjoining property to the northwest. The site is mostly treed and has not been previously developed. Surrounding properties include residential sensitive resources to the northwest, light industrial to the southwest and south and southeast, and multifamily medium density to the north and east. As part of this project, the applicant will be required to install frontage improvements, extend infrastructure, address traffic mitigation, and provide stormwater facilities and open space. The preliminary plat application was submitted earlier this year, and a notice of application was issued on March 28, 2025. During the public comment period, the Squaxin Island Tribe and community members submitted comments. The tribe stated that they had no initial concerns about cultural resources, but recommended an inadvertent discovery plan. Community members raised questions about fencing, tree removal, traffic, climate impacts, sidewalks, bus routes, housing policy, and staff has provided written responses, which were included as attachments Exhibit 6. The city's transportation manager issued a concurrency ruling stating that trips from this project will use the Tumwater Boulevard I-5 interchange, which will require either payment of mitigation fees or participation in interchange improvements due to the failing intersection movement. Additionally, the traffic study showed that the intersection of Old Highway 99 and Henderson Boulevard is projected to fall to a level of service E regardless of whether this project is built or not. The traffic study identified improvements such as signal timing adjustments to maintain the level of service standards at that intersection. Additionally, this intersection is also in the city's 6-year capital facilities plan to turn the intersection into a roundabout in the future. Environmental review was completed under SEPA, and an MDNS, or mitigated determination of non-significance, was issued on June 13th, 2025. No appeals were filed. Commenters included the Olympia Regional Clean Air Agency about dust control during construction. Ecology provided comments on construction practices. Intercity Transit requested a bus stop pad along Henderson Boulevard to accommodate anticipated route changes. And lastly, the Squaxin Island Tribe updated their comments and requested a cultural resource study prior to land disturbance, which has been added as condition 7. The notice of this hearing was mailed on September 12th, 2025 to property owners within 300 feet of the property, agencies, and posted on site and published in the Olympian. As part of this project, the applicant submitted a critical areas report. One wetland is located within 300 feet on the adjacent property to the northwest. It is a category 3 wetland with a 150-foot buffer. No buffer reduction is proposed, and a trail is planned within the buffer, which is a permitted use. The site was reviewed for Mazama pocket gopher habitat. A report was submitted July 2023 and determined the site's dense forest cover and understory is not suitable gopher habitat, so no further screening was required. A professional forester's report provided a tree inventory and protection plan. Of the 498 total trees, the code requires at least 111 to be retained. The applicant proposes to retain 106, leaving a deficit of 5 trees. This will be addressed by replanting the deficit at a 3-to-1 ratio, requiring a minimum of 15 replacement trees to be planted. The preliminary landscape plan provides sufficient space for these plantings in addition to other required landscaping as a part of the development. The site is zoned multifamily medium density, as I mentioned previously, and townhomes and apartments are permitted uses. The zone requires a minimum of 9 units per acre and a maximum of 14 dwelling units per acre without a transfer of development rights. The proposed density is 13.9 units per acre, which is within the allowed range. There are no minimum lot sizes or widths in this district. Heights are limited to 40 feet, and the setbacks are 10 feet in the front, 5 feet on the side, and 5 feet on the rear. These standards, along with townhome and apartment design guidelines, will be confirmed during the building permit review process. The project also meets the 15% open space requirement as reflected on the site plan. The townhome residents will share open space facilities with the apartment complex as a part of the proposed conditions and approval. Lastly, the property is within the Aquifer Protection Overlay District. Residential uses are not a restricted use within the overlay, so no additional conditions would apply. As you mentioned, since the staff report was released, the applicant was able to review the city's conditions, and staff and the applicant have come to an agreement on some revisions to those conditions, which were sent to the hearing examiner and applicant on Monday, and the city would enter that as Exhibit 19, ideally, reflecting those changes, and we would be happy to update those for you if they are accepted. Based on review, staff finds the preliminary plat and site plan with revised conditions are consistent with the Tumwater Comprehensive Plan, Municipal Code, Development Standards, and city policies. Staff recommends approval of the request with attached conditions as amended, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. A few, no particular order as always. They tend to be scattered. I apologize. The one thing that, of course, stands out is that levels of service at nearby intersections are beginning to critical, most notably at Old 99 and Henderson Boulevard. It's currently operating well at LOSC, but by early 2030s, it's projected to operate at LOSE, which is below the city standard. And of course, this project will not make that any better, although it will not make it much worse. So for those who are wondering, well, how is the city letting this traffic get so problematic? How might you and how can we be approving new developments while we know that our roads are beginning to become overwhelmed? How might you comprehensively respond to those types of concerns?
Yes, absolutely. So there is a transportation master plan that discusses overarching updates and potential improvements to corridors and intersections throughout the city where we're identifying these issues. Typically, if it was a single development that was going to trip that level of service deficit at an intersection, we would require certain improvements be completed by a development. However, when it's a totality of improvements being completed, throughout the city and just natural growth of the city with background traffic, the city typically would need to step in at that point, and that is where our 6-year plan would come in, where we're putting aside funding and planning for improvements in those corridors and intersections. And this is, further shown through the 6-year plan and identified money that is being tucked away for future improvements at a time, when the city has the money to complete those improvements. So there, those are identified, and there is a long-term plan to complete, a longer or a more cohesive improvement along the Old Highway 99 corridor and the Henderson Boulevard corridor.
Oh, thanks. There doesn't appear to be proposed a left turn lane into the facility. Am I reading the material correctly then?
Off of Henderson.
Right.
Yes, I believe that is correct. The total corridor at build out, I don't think we'll have a left-hand turn lane, but eventually when the corridor is built out more, with the road improvements kind of continually being widened along the road, there may be restriping in the future that would add a left turn lane.
Okay. The traffic impact study identifies the project has resulted in 63 p.m. peak hour trips, and I assume that's not enough to trigger additional improvements along Henderson Boulevard other than frontage improvements.
That's correct. The frontage improvements were the only identified direct improvements that will be completed by this project along Henderson.
Okay. And in terms of internal improvements, sidewalks on both sides of the road, it will be parking. What else? How much you give? What sort of visual picture would you paint of the road and its improvements running through this development?
Yes. So along the frontage, at least, there will be the planter strip, street trees, sidewalk. You would have the transition from that to the private open space in front of the apartments. And then as you go around the bend onto the newly created public road adjacent to the townhomes, you would have a similar alignment of those same improvements, the street trees with the planter strips, sidewalks, and then driveways coming off of that new public road. And then within the development itself, you do have sidewalks throughout the development leading to open spaces and the trail, and that bring you to the different components within the development itself.
It's not clear whether there's parking intended either in the apartment section, on-street parking, sorry, in the apartment section or the townhome section what do you envision for general parking?
The way that parking is designed in the circumstances that it will be on each of the portions of the development. So for example, the apartment component of the development will have all of the parking within their parking lots themselves. And that's been accounted for with our parking calculations within the ordinance. And then similarly, there will be at a minimum 2 parking spaces per townhome lot, either within the driveway or in garages, or a combination of those two.
So the portion or the road running past the townhomes, you don't envision parking along that road?
No, I do
Street
not
parking?
believe, yeah, I do not believe street parking is a part of either Henderson Boulevard or on street for that public road section.
And that's consistent throughout the development, not just the townhomes?
The internal drive lane for the apartment does not have any anticipated parking on those drive lanes either.
Oh, okay. I see why you're struggling with my question, because there really isn't a public road through the apartments. There's an internal drive, but no public road through that. Sorry for the way I asked the question.
No, okay, no worries.
But as to that driveway, again, there's no parking along the internal driveway then.
That's correct. I think there's
Oh.
a pull off for you know just turn around at that location, but no parking.
So let's talk a little bit about the tracks on this project. Uh, I'd like to better understand track A, the one toward the northwest corner. And how is that? Is that envisioned for future development of Durrell, or what is its purpose?
On the northwest portion of the map, or northwest, and I will share my screen just so you can see the exhibit, so we can make sure we're talking the same location. I'll pull up the
Yes.
preliminary plat.
Yeah,
so we can,
I said northwest, it's angular to the ordinance to the north-south. And so it's, yes, that tract A.
yeah.
So is that there for the future expansion or development of Durrell, or is that there for some other reason?
No, I think it's just a stormwater tract with this
I see.
stormwater system on it. That is all.
Oh, okay. So what is the thoughts for future? Because I'm curious as to why then the stub out there, if it's not envisioned as some sort of future improvement. And yet we do appear to be stubbing for connection to Durrell later. Tell me a little bit about the plan for that corner of the development.
Yeah, of course. So right here is a emergency services turnaround, and I'll zoom into it. Because Durrell Road does not extend all the way through right here. Part of the property required for Durrell Road to extend all the way through is on an adjacent piece of property. So the applicant is providing a portion of that dedication and the improvements to the extent that they can along this curve. However, since this does not extend all the way through, there was a need to provide some sort of emergency turnaround at the end of this public road, and that is what this is providing.
And so I don't know if it's visible from the, okay, that sort of shows that the right of way for Durrell to the west extends somewhat south into, or if it was to continue, it would extend into a few feet into the northerly boundary of this site. If it was to continue as a 60-foot right of way. Does that make sense? You are not asking for its dedication for its extension further into the property in an easterly direction. And why is that? What is the thought about the future of Durrell? Is this an opportunity for its dedication that's being missed, or is it simply never envisioned to be extending any further, such that dedicating that or reserving it is not necessary?
So Durrell currently terminates here. It's a little bit off map, and I could pull up an actual map of the city if that would be helpful. But currently it terminates at the end right here. And there is a desire ultimately for the road to continue and connect to this new public road. However, because it is not a part of the parcel that is being proposed or being developed right now, there was no way for the city, from the way that the right-of-way lines up, there's no way to achieve the full construction of that road. So it connects to where Durrell terminates currently. So it would take the northern property to develop, or for the city to go through some sort of process to have purchase or eminent domain a portion of property to finish out that connection.
That's helpful. I was trying to ask something slightly differently, not doing a good job of it. And that has to do more with the potential of extending Durrell east of the road coming in from this development.
I see.
And whether or not there's any likelihood of there being a reason for it to be extended beyond its intersection point with this internal road, such that we would want to ask the applicant to dedicate the anticipated right-of-way in the future. Now, obviously, that's running directly to a wetland, and so to some extent, Durrell will never be expanded further, and maybe that's the easy answer as to why it's not being sought to be dedicated any further than the connection to this internal road. Is that most likely the simplest answer as to why nothing's being asked more than this?
Yes, there's a large wetland system back to the northwest that would prevent a road from going through here. It's also not in any transportation plan to connect road further to the east. We do have a proposed connection here, which would extend Trails End Drive to a potential development further north. So there really is not a need for a further connection of Durrell, to the east.
Okay. And then as to that connection with Durrell, subject to resolution of the required right-of-way from the adjoining property owner to the north, is all that would be necessary from this property, is it being required as a condition of project approval?
Yes, they will be completing the maximum limits that they can for the construction, which would just be the sidewalk going around the corner here at this point.
Okay. Mr. Brook, that addresses the questions I had prepared in advance of today's hearing. So thank you. And I assume that concludes then the city's presentation.
It does. Thank you.
Let's turn then to the applicant. And Mr. Carlson, should we anticipate your testimony else's?
I'm sorry, you broke up there, Mr. Sharpmeyer.
Oh, I probably looked down away from my microphone. Do you anticipate being the witness for the applicant, or is it someone else that I should hear from?
No, I'll be the main presenter.
Okay. If that's the case, let's have you sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You've heard Mr. Baruch's testimony and my questions back. You're familiar with the city staff report. What things would you like to add to the city's presentation?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Sharpmeyer. I think city staff did an excellent job of putting staff report together and doing the presentation this afternoon. I guess I'd first like to start out by introducing the applicant team. Two of them are here with me this afternoon. Again, I'm Chris Carlson. I'm the planning manager for Hatton Godat Pantier, the civil engineering and surveying firm representing the client. We also have in the room Steve Hatton, president of Hatton Godat Pantier, civil engineer. To my left here is Curtis Wambach, who is the principal for EnviroVector, who prepared the wetland report and the gopher report. Who we don't have with us, but I'd want to mention on the applicant team is Heath and Associates, Mr. Aaron Van Aken, professional traffic engineer, put together the traffic report. Geotechnical report was put together by Quality Geo Northwest, Luke McCann, the owner of that company. And then finally, part of the applicant team was Mike Jackson, who is the owner of Professional Forestry Consultants located there in Tumwater. So like I said, Alex did a great job of describing the project. I'll just kind of touch on a couple of things. All these lots, of course, will be served by City of Tumwater sewer. Water is going to be extended to the site along Henderson Boulevard and loop through the site to help with fire flow. It's a 12-inch main extension per the City of Tumwater's comp plan on Henderson Boulevard, and then we're proposing to come off that with an 8-inch loop through the project. Each lot will be accessed by public streets. We're dedicating 2 public streets on either end of the site, both the west and the east end of the site. I will say that we are dedicating right away on up in the area that you were having discussions with Mr. Baruch about the Durrell connection. There is right away being dedicated. That is visualized as a T intersection, of course, in the future once the city acquires the additional right of way from that property to the north. Sidewalks, we talked about that. There'll be sidewalks on both sides of the public streets on the west and east end of the site. And then there'll be pedestrian connections to the apartment site from the Henderson Boulevard sidewalk that will be put in several locations, as well as pedestrian access off of those 2 new streets to the east and the west. One of the things that I did not provide, which I normally do, is, as you know, RCW 5817 has specific findings. One of those has to do with safe walking conditions for students to school. I did not, like I normally do, put together a safe walk analysis. So I do have a couple of exhibits that I'd like to enter into the record. The Tumwater School District publishes walking route maps for their schools. In this particular case, the students that are going to reside in this development will be attending Peter G. Schmidt Elementary School, George Washington Bush Middle School, and then Tumwater High School. Peter G., which is to the north, if you go up Capitol Boulevard, Old 99, it turns into Capitol Boulevard, it's to the north. Has a walking route map that's published on the school district's website. And Tumwater High School also has a published map, which Tumwater High School, again, is to the northwest on Israel Road, just west there of City Hall. George W. Bush Middle School is on the southern end of the Port of Olympia property adjacent to Interstate 5. It's pretty remote, and so there is no published walking route. So I would like to admit at least the Peter G. Schmidt and the Tumwater High School walking route maps that are published by the Tumwater School District.
Certainly, the proposed changes to conditions that I was sent yesterday will become Exhibit 19 And Mr. Carlson's maps collectively will be 20.
Thank you. So stormwater, yeah, Alex.
Let's, before we pass on, what conclusions do you draw from those maps, Mr. Carlson?
Well, if I could share screen, I can certainly do that. If I can figure out how to here. Okay, where is my screen?
Yeah, if it turns out to be unusually problematic, you can simply summarize for me.
Yeah,
how-
sure.
how
Let's
do
go
you
ahead and
think?
do that. Yeah, the safe walk zone maps don't even come close to touching this property. The Peter G. Schmidt is primarily around the areas of Israel Road, on the south end from the school, Capitol Boulevard, and then it goes up into the neighborhoods a little bit north of the school along Dennis Street. So it's very, very limited walking route zone. And again, the Tumwater High School walking route zone does not extend across east from Capitol Boulevard. So again, well away from the project site.
So let me stop you there for a moment and just go back to Mr. Baruch for a minute. Mr. Baruch, you've heard Mr. Carlson's comments regarding safe walking routes. The city feel any differently than the applicant about the available walking routes?
No, that was the same conclusion we came to. Exactly.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Carlson, back to you. I think you were starting to talk about stormwater when we stopped. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just touch on that briefly. So you had a question about Tract A, and yes, that will be an underground stormwater facility, one of two that we'll have for the site. The other one is located just east of the rec center on the north end of the property. So we're going to have to comply with the city's 2022 stormwater drainage manual. We've done the preliminary calculations for those facilities, and we've got them dialed in, so we'll be able to handle stormwater in accordance with the city's storm drainage manual.
So stormwater has, in a project like this, has really two issues. One is simply its management under the city's adopted version of the stormwater manual. And then secondly is assuring hydrology, the hydrology of the adjoining wetlands. I note here that these are infiltration facilities. For those who might be concerned about the ecology of the adjoining wetlands to the north, how might you explain how this maintains the hydrology of that wetland?
I'm going to go ahead and defer that. I'll have Steve Hatton, our civil engineer, address that question after
Okay.
I'm completed with my comments. Thank you.
Okay, I'll come back to that.
Okay, thank you. In terms of project specifics, the city will require a homeowners association be formed for this development, including the apartment site and the 10 townhome sites, as Mr. Baruch indicated, in order to meet the city's open space requirements. All of the active and passive amenities on the apartment site that meet the city's minimum code requirements for open space will be available to the townhome owners on the west side of the site. We already kind of talked about transportation. I'll just note that we will be paying SEPA-based mitigation fees for impacts to the Tumwater Boulevard interchange in accordance with the published mitigated determination of non-significance. and to address the level of service deficiency noted for the intersection of Henderson Boulevard and Old 99. We will be mitigating that by adjusting the signal timing up there to improve the level of service from E to level of service D. Level of service D does meet the city's concurrency requirements. And I will note that the city's public works director, transportation engineering director, did provide a transportation concurrency ruling. That's an exhibit in the staff report.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Carlson?
Not at this time.
Okay, let's turn to Mr. Hatton. Mr. Hatton, let's have you sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
So I asked questions as to how this project's stormwater management dovetails with maintenance of the adjoining wetland, such that we can declare that that it meets the requirements for there being no net loss of ecological function, etc. So when you take stormwater and you infiltrate, what's being done to assure the hydrology of that large wetland to the north?
This is an interesting site insofar as in a lot of tumwater is this way in terms of the soil itself. It's relatively permeable. It's a sandy material. There's some fines in it, but generally it's a very well drained soil. And in this case, there happens to be a wetland that's, you know, not that much further north. Those two things don't normally go together. And so what is happening out there currently in the undeveloped condition is that most of the water that falls on that, particularly in the winter, when the deciduous, well, all the trees are not taking up a lot of water, it goes right into the ground in the well-drained soils. And so that water then hits a groundwater table or moves laterally and ends up in the wetlands. And that's in effect, if not precisely, the concept behind the stormwater management system. There's three facilities, a trench that Mr. Carlson talked about earlier, two ponds, one that takes runoff from Henderson and another one that takes most of the site runoff. And they are all preceded by the proprietary filter systems, basically think big oil filters like in your car, but aimed at stormwater pollutants to clean the water up. And then the rainwater then goes into these storm ponds and goes right back down into the ground, spread out in these three different locations over the site. Again, much like it's occurring now. And so that'll either reach the groundwater like it did before or move laterally and hit the wetland that basically preserves the hydro period of that wetland by mimicking the natural regime.
And so to summarize, you believe that it's neither decreasing or increasing the hydrology of the wetland such that its current makeup would be materially altered by the flow from these facilities?
Correct.
Okay.
As opposed to some other systems where we might meter the discharge and discharge directly to the wetland, then there'd be additional work to consider that, but we're not doing that.
Which is why I was asking this series of questions, is that I did notice metering of its flow and wondered why, given such a large wetland to the north, a seemingly important wetland, how that was being maintained. And you've answered it, that the soil conditions allow for an alternate approach that you feel is satisfactory. Am I summarizing your testimony adequately?
Yes, you've got the important parts of it.
Okay,
Sure.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Hatton?
Well, I mean, the site's, roughly flat. We talked about the soils, groundwater was, evaluated. It's well, below our concerned, area. We talked about the treatment system. About the only thing, in terms of the staff report, I don't have any problem at all with condition 53, at least the first sentence of condition 53. It says comply with the drainage manual, and that's certainly what our preliminary designs have done, and of course we would continue to do that. I think there's some interpretation of that drainage manual in the second sentence of condition 53. I don't happen to agree with that interpretation.
That has to do with when test pits would be dug?
Correct. And the city staff on a couple of other projects and we've been talking through some of those interpretations, but I would just say that might add, in my opinion, does add to the requirement to comply with the city code. And so I think it puts more on the plat than really the plat should have. If the final interpretation includes that, then great, complying with the code covers it. But to put it here, I think adds to something that's not required.
Sometimes if I paraphrase testimony, that will alert you if I'm on track or not. Am I to take from your comments that you feel that the first sentence incorporates the obligation well enough that stating it a second time is redundant? Or that it's instead that you're saying that it's adding something that isn't required under the manual? Which of those two are you saying?
I say the latter. I'm quite sure city staff would say the former.
Okay. Okay.
And therein lies the debate. But
I
I think, and there are provisions in the drainage manual to address debates. And that's what I'd say is, if we're gonna have a debate, let's have it within the context and the remedies that are available to us in the actual code, and not just add it as a condition of plat approval.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, not this time. Certainly be here for questions later, but
Okay. And Mr. Carlson, does that conclude the applicant's presentation?
No, actually, I'd like to introduce Curtis Wambach with EnviroVector. He'll go over a short summary of the wetland report and the Gopher report that he put together.
Okay, great. Mr. Wambach, let's have you sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Go ahead.
All right, my name is Curtis Wambach, Principal and Senior Biologist at EnviroVector Environmental Consulting, LLC. Prepared two reports for this project. One is a Mazama Pocket Gopher report, and the second is a critical areas report. The Mazama Pocket report, just like Alex mentioned earlier, it satisfies the forested condition to preclude any additional gopher screenings. So in the critical areas report, no wetlands or streams were identified on the subject property during the site evaluation. One wetland labeled Wetland A was identified entirely off-site. The Wetland A boundary was GNSS located at points A1 through A16 using a Trimble Geo 7X with sub-foot accuracy. So it's accurate within a foot. And the wetland boundary was very well defined by soils, hydrology, vegetation, and topography. The wetland is located at the toe of the slopes. So it's very well defined and can be seen on topographic maps. The wetland boundary matches aerial photography and surveyed contours. And the wetland was determined to be a Category 3 wetland with a habitat score of 6. And the total rating score was 19, so the standard buffer was 150 feet. And that summarizes mainly the critical areas report, unless there's any questions.
Well, just a couple, in confirming that the applicant is not seeking a wetland buffer reduction as might otherwise be allowed under Tumwater regulation, correct?
That's correct. We are not.
And then as to, and therefore, since it's not seeking any sort of mitigation I'm sorry, since it's not seeking any buffer reduction, and since none of the development encroaches the 150-foot buffer, then there's no wetland mitigation proposed, correct?
That's correct.
And then as to the proposed trail through the wetland buffer, that's regarded as an allowed exemption from the wetland regulations, and it does not require mitigation, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then I believe the project is conditioned on standard requirements to protect that wetland, fencing, signage, other steps to ensure that it's preserved for, so the ecology of that wetland is preserved, correct?
That's correct. It will follow those standards.
Okay. Then no, I don't have any other questions, Mr. Wawa.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Carlson?
I'll just conclude that we've reviewed the staff report, recommended conditions of approval, and we are satisfied.
And when you say you have no objection to the conditions, you're referring to the ones as revised by what I received yesterday.
That's correct, and that is correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So we've heard from city staff, we've heard from the applicant's team. This now gets us to the public hearing portion of today's hearing, which the record should reflect the hearing is taking place in both in-person and hybrid format. So there is opportunity for the public to be heard either by attending at the city's facilities or by attending remotely. So, and Mr. Brook, you appear to be at a location other than the city's facility, or at least the meeting room. Is someone else monitoring it and can advise me as to whether there are members of the public present there who might like to be heard?
Yes, Tammy Merriman, the permit manager, is in the Sunset Room in City Hall, and should be able to indicate whether there are people that would like to speak.
Great, thank you. Ms. Merriman, can you let me know whether there are members of the public present in that location that wish to be heard?
Yes, just checking. You can hear us?
I can hear you well, yes.
Okay, thank you. We do have members here of the public, and I believe we have at least one that wants to testify, if not two.
I have questions.
I'm going to go down the list, and I apologize. I didn't see how they were signed in. Is it Michael O'Neill?
No.
Okay. Robert Long? I'm going by the
Yeah.
list. So, Robert, you wanted to testify, yes?
Oh, yeah, I had some questions.
Okay.
The hearing examiner is going to ask you to swear in, and then he'll take your
Certainly.
testimony.
Certainly.
So,
Can you
Ms.
hear?
Merriman, okay. We'll do this one piece at a time. First, as to the name, I couldn't quite hear the name.
My name's Robert Long,
And how do I spell the last name?
Long,
Oh,
as in
Long,
not
okay.
short.
All right. That microphone's just a little challenging for me,
I say Long.
but we'll deal with that. So first things first, Mr. Long, let's have you sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Have to
Okay.
raise my hand or something.
When it's a remote hearing, I've just I've learned to dispense with the hand raising. It's more trouble than it's worth. So before you were sworn, you mentioned that you had some questions. So let me explain how I like to deal with questions. So first of all, I never want to lose control of my hearing. And so yeah, I can easily lose control if it suddenly becomes a back and forth between either the city staff and the applicant, or the public and the applicant, or the public and the city staff. In any of those instances, if I'm not regulating that, I can lose control of my hearing. So what I'd like to do instead is to, if you have questions, I'll make note of them, and I'll see to it that they are posed to the proper people for answers. If you'd simply like to testify as well, that's fine too. So you tell me what it is that you would like to say, and then I'll figure out how best to deal with it.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say that I'm the owner of that wetland property that is directly adjoining the subject property. And I believe I have at least like 1,000 feet of border, or a share of border, a significant amount. And I just want, one of the things, and maybe I heard, mention of fencing and signage with regards to the wetland area. One of the things that I had requested off the bat was a fence be constructed on the boundary there, primarily because of the fact that, because there's going to be a lot more people in the area, it's obvious that, people will have the tendency to wander onto my property. And, because of the fact that there's, liability issues associated with that, I respectfully request that a fence be put across that border, along with signage, to prevent people from the area from coming onto my property.
Sure, let's stop and address that issue first, and then see what else you might have. But as to that issue, memory serves that Mr. Baruch responded to that concern with an answer. I'll have him explain that, but I believe he responded that the city agrees with fencing along that boundary and is requiring it, except that the type of fencing will vary according to whether it's within a wetland buffer or not. So that common boundary that finds itself in wetland buffer will have one type of fencing per the wetland rules, and then the rest will be more standard fencing. Am I paraphrasing the city's position correctly, Mr. Baruch?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Okay, I went back through the emails. I could have sworn I didn't see. I guess I must. That's great. It's
certainly possible that it didn't get to you, but it did get to me, and it did respond and answer that yes, there would be fencing. So, other questions that you may have?
Well, I had discussed the possibility of that easement, to connect Durrell Road to the to that one Road A that's on the plat map. At this particular time, I don't agree with that right now. I mean, it's something that I would be happy to discuss, but the terms eminent domain don't settle very well with me at all, because I suddenly get the feeling that if I don't give it up, you're going to take it. So I would like to know exactly what you're thinking along those lines.
I can ask the city. I don't think it's thinking anything along those lines, but I can have Mr. Baruch confirm. Mr. Baruch, how would you respond?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Hearing Examiner. There's no plan or anticipation of eminent domain. I was just mentioning that as one tool in the city's tool chest for obtaining property. However, our primary resolve would be to work with a property owner to acquire a property if there was a need for that connection. However, typically, the connection would be done with a development application, doing their frontage improvements to make that final connection. And if there was no plan for development and there was a need for that road connection, the city would try and work with the property owner to purchase the property and make that connection through city costs.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Long, just sort of paraphrasing what the city is answering, is that it would be highly unlikely, it seems, that they would impose that against your will, but rather would seek it as part of any development that you might later envision. They would see that as a mutually beneficial thing at that time, where if you want to develop, that the price you would pay for that later development is to assure connection, just as this property. Short of that, the city probably won't see a connection as being so critical as to feel the need to impose that access upon you through condemnation. But again, I can't speak for the city. That I'm simply paraphrasing what Mr. Brook has testified to.
Yeah.
It would just surprise me if that approach was taken, though. So,
Okay.
any other
Maybe.
questions or testimony that you have?
Well, I do want to make an observation, however, I live right on the pond, that wetland. And, for the last several years, I've seen it growing in pretty steadily. And it seems as though it really started once the airport across Old 99 built their retention ponds, because it was my understanding that a lot of the airport runoff fed that pond, right? I do see significant decreases in the amount of water in the pond and increases of grass growing across the pond. It's literally just growing itself in. And it's doing it quite rapidly. I feel that it's probably going to be even a quicker process as more development comes around. The number of ducks coming in and out, the geese significantly reduced compared to previous years. We did have light rainfall this last year, which probably contributed to that. I just wanted to, make note of the fact that, it is, the pond right now is dry. There is no water in it. And I believe there was no water in it last year either, but it used to be able to retain water. The number of lily pads is shrinking down to nothing. So, as long as that's a normal course of that pond, then, there's really nothing I can do about it. But I just wanted to make note of the fact that it's happening very rapidly.
I'll stop once again and turn to Mr. Hatton. Mr. Hatton, as a follow-up to some of your earlier testimony, and you've heard from Mr. Long's concerns, how might you respond?
Mr. Long has lived on that pond for some time and so has seen changes. I don't know if he's been there long enough to see a rise in the pond based on different rainfall events. It's hard to say, but the placing the same amount of water back into the ground as was going into the ground now can't affect the amount of water going into that pond. So I don't know what the airport may or may not have done, or if that has anything to do with the causation and correlation and that sort of thing. But I am confident that we are proposing a system that mimics existing impacts from this property on the pond to the north. So that's about the best we can accomplish.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And
that's
so-
fine. I just want to make note of that, regardless of whether or not there's a drainage ditch there or whatever, I doubt it's gonna make much difference. It's already growing in. I would fully anticipate no waterfowl at all within the next couple of years.
Okay, thank you.
Based on
Any, sorry, I keep stepping on your testimony, Mr. Long. I don't mean to, but I'm sometimes not sure when you're finished. I apologize. Was there any additional questions or testimony that you wanted to give?
Well, I had, through my conversations with Alex, with regards to that easement, was planning on looking into doing a wetland study. I actually called that guy that's sitting next to Chris a couple of times, never got a call back.
Apologize for that.
Because I was hoping, because, my biggest problem with, having that addition there is, there was a proposal that be done through this project. And it would bring, I guess it would bring, city water and sewer, right, to the back corner of my lot there. But the bottom line is if I can't build on anything on that side of the pond, why in the world would I bother is my question. But, all I want to say is I would be open to discussion, on doing that. Maybe it's too late now, for, those types of discussions, but I would be open to discussion for that easement,
Well,
unreasonable.
I'm sorry, I interrupted again. I would certainly invite you to have a conversation with Ms. Merriman on your way out tonight to talk about whether she can facilitate any conversations of a larger nature involving your property as well.
Well, I just want, I would be interested for sure if I knew that I could maybe have a couple lots on my property to build on, so.
Right, so noted. Anything else, Mr. Long?
I think that's it. My biggest concern really was just the fence. And I guess I missed that. I'm very happy about that.
Ms. Merriman, who do you next show?
Corey? Yep. Stern?
Hello?
Oh, hi. I wasn't sure what was happening there. Your name again?
Corey Stern?
And again, that microphone, at least for me, is a little bit.
It's Corey Stern, Stern.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry that I'm struggling a little bit with that. So, Mr. Stern, let's have you sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Go ahead.
I've lived just off of Henderson for quite some time now. I have some property over there, and I was just wondering how far down Henderson is the sewer main gonna come? Just for future endeavors I may have. I'm just curious.
Well, let's see if we can find out. Mr. Baruch, do you happen to know?
Yes, the sewer will be coming down to the edge of the property. The requirement is to ensure that it extends to the property boundaries on both sides at a minimum. So it will extend to the furthest boundaries, north and south on Henderson Boulevard.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Stern?
Yeah, and as far as I don't know if I maybe just missed it, the sidewalks, are they just gonna be confined to the borders of the new development, or are they gonna extend all the way down and connect to the existing sidewalks towards Old Highway 99?
I'll turn to Mr. Baruch in a minute, but my quick response is that it's my understanding that these would only apply directly in front of the property, as the city doesn't have the authority to impose their construction on adjoining properties. for various reasons, but Mr. Baruch, would you answer in any different way?
No, that is correct.
Okay.
Okay, and then my final question would be, do you guys, when approximately are we gonna break ground on this? So I was just, because I live right there, so it's definitely gonna affect my daily comings and goings.
Well, first of all, I haven't approved anything, and so
Oh.
that's a small detail that has to be overcome in order for them to do anything. But Mr. Carlson, if I decide to approve this development, do you have any sense of when it may occur?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Scharbmeyer. We have been given the full green light to prepare the civil construction drawings on this particular project. And so depending on the review period, I anticipate, well, the earliest would be probably a spring of 2026 construction. That's depending on
All right.
reviews and the back and forth with the city on the detailed construction plans.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carlson. Mr. Stern, any other testimony or questions?
I don't believe so. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And then Ms. Merriman, do you have others who wish to be heard?
Anybody else, and you're here for the next hearing, the Tumwater Townhomes?
Yes.
Okay, this is the Henderson 94, so we'll close this one down and start the other one shortly. There's no other testimony, sir.
Okay. And Mr. Baruch, do you show anyone appearing remotely who might wish to be heard?
We do. We have two different groups, I believe, that are online. I'll start with Terry Kirkpatrick first. So I will allow Terry to speak. And if Terry wants to unmute and say whether you'd like to testify.
Do not care to testify. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kirkpatrick. And then we have Warren Hendrickson and Chris, who I believe are both from the Port of Olympia. So I believe that they would speak together, if that's correct. Is that correct, Warren?
Chris may have a few words or additional comments if I miss anything, but yes, I do have a presentation to make to the hearing examiner, and whenever the opportunity presents.
Certainly, but is that with respect to this application or the next one?
Actually, this one, sir.
Oh, okay. Because I did note the other one has a significant discussion about the field. So certainly, so Mr. Henderson, let's have you sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And again, you're appearing on behalf of the Port of Olympia.
That is correct. It appears that in this webinar format, I am not able to share a screen, so I will make my comments verbally. I will share a copy of the presentation and related documents with Mr. Baruch following today's hearing, so that you'll have that in written format as well. I did not submit that in advance, only because I wanted to take full advantage of this public hearing opportunity this afternoon.
Certainly, and I always appreciate receiving the written version as well. You are probably better than most, but many people, when they start reading off a written statement, speed up. And the result is it's difficult to catch it all. So having the written comments as well gives me something to fall back upon. So I'll recognize your written comments as Exhibit 22, 2021. And if you'll be good enough to provide those to the city so that they can in turn forward those to me, I would appreciate that.
Yes, sir. I certainly will do that, and I'll make a note of that when I do submit them to the city as exhibit number 21.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see me on video or not. I have my camera enabled, but I'm not sure exactly on the webinar format if that's helpful from the city's.
For whatever reason, I do not have that. I just have your name on my screen.
Okay. Well, in that case, allow me to introduce myself, sir. My name is Warren Hendrickson. I am the Director of Operations for the Port of Olympia. The Port of Olympia is the owner and operator, also formerly known as the airport sponsor of Olympia Regional Airport. I have been with the port for over 3 years. I initially came to the port as the airport senior manager of Olympia Regional Airport, and Chris Paolini is my successor in that role at the airport. The reason why I wish to speak to you on this particular development is that, and my requested ask of this process is that we impose an additional condition of an navigation easement on this development. I will explain in further detail what that amounts to, but to also protect the airport. The nature of this development, it is only 2,660 feet away from the runway center line. It is, the center of the development is 3,100 feet from the runway threshold. This residential development will be likely the closest residential development to the operating airport runway in Tumwater. And as a result, that brings additional conditions. I will say at the outset that the municipal code of Tumwater, specifically 18.32, the airport overlay zone, has been complied with in this particular development. The problem that we have at the port and the airport in particular is that the airport overlay zone was incorporated by the city of Tumwater in 2004. The Washington State Department of Transportation Aviation Division updated airport land use compatibility guidelines in January of 2011, and the city's code does not reflect those new guidelines. These particular guidelines do directly now include an additional airport overlay zone known as Zone 6, which directly now impacts this Henderson 94 development and site plan. 193 takeoffs and landings occur each day at the Olympia Regional Airport. The development lies inside the airport traffic pattern of those operating aircraft. So as a result, this development will see a significant amount of impact from the its close proximity to the airport. And as a result, the navigation easement will call attention to that, to the current owners as well as all future successors and assigns. The documents I will provide you in writing will show exactly where the state land use guidance is for the runway operation and how this development falls in Zone 6. I will submit pictures and photographs from Google Earth. I will be the first to admit that the dimensions are shown are mine alone, not by a professional engineer, but I am fully confident that the dimensions I show on my Google Earth depictions of this particular development with respect to the airport, the boundaries are within 10 feet of being accurate as best I can possibly tell. The actual runway center line, I misspoke before with regard to the distance from the runway center line, is I think I mentioned 2,660 feet from the runway center line. And so that's where that one sits on that one. When we look at the actual depiction of the state's guidance for land use compatibility, and it is a significantly long volume, I will send along with my written comments the specific excerpts that apply. A single family dwelling in what is Zone 6 is considered a limited use. The multifamily dwelling of 15 or more, given the number of apartments, is a permitted use, but both are subject to significant limitations. Under the limited use, the uses, and I quote this right from the WSDOT Aviation Compatible Land Use Guidelines document. Uses or activities that may be compatible with airport operations depend upon their size, the location, bulk, height, density, and intensity of use. And under the permitted option for the multifamily purposes, use or activities that should be permitted. However, these activities should be reviewed to ensure that they will not create height, hazard construction, smoke, glare, electronic, wildlife attractants, or other airspace hazards. So the end result is how do we protect the future residents for their own awareness, but also how do we protect the airport from any potential detrimental impacts from this development on the airport. And the navigation easement does that. At a very high level, the components of a navigation easement are to establish an airspace easement over the property in perpetuity. This will keep the airspace free and clear of obstructions and can cause them to be lighted if required. It does things such as prevent lighting that would interfere with aircraft on approach to the runway. it prevents ham radio towers from being established at a height that would pose an obstruction to aircraft. The end result is there can be no hindrance to air traffic into and out of the airport, and it must also advise the future tenants and landowners and homeowners of the presence of noise, dust, turbulence, vibration, illumination, air currents, fumes, exhaust smoke, and all other effects as may be inherent in the proper operation of aircraft. So the ask before you is to add one additional condition for if you choose to approve this development as the hearing examiner, and that is to impose an avigation easement as a mitigated condition of approval, that such avigation easement is to run with the land in perpetuity and remain binding on all successors and assigns. And a related document of this avigation easement I will provide as part of my comments and is already on file at the City of Tumwater. The port's first discussions on this development, I went back and looked at my records, go back to May 4th, 2023, when the Port of Olympia joined in the feasibility review of this development well over 2.5 years ago. So that concludes my comments. I don't know if Chris is online, if he has anything else to add, but I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Mr. Paulini, do you wish to be heard as well?
No, I have nothing to add at this time. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Well, I will look forward to those documents for my review. And without rendering any decision about that, I am concerned about that request for a couple of reasons. One, I wonder why it was not perhaps submitted during the SEPA review, as that would have been a good time to capture the issue and review it. Secondly, I do recall this coming up on another project I was asked to address last year, perhaps, a project along Tumwater Boulevard, and I do recall the city's policy being at that time concerned about applying this requirement because it's somewhat piecemealed, which leads my third concern is that applying it to this project without application in a common way, that is without it being incorporated into the city's development regulations, creates an arbitrary and capricious approach toward its use where only certain types of projects have it considered and none others. And that starts to weaken its usability or its function when it might only apply to one project out of, say, 20. So anyway, those are simply some concerns that strike me upon listening to Mr. Hendrickson's presentation. What I might encourage, without rendering, again, any decision yet about its application here, is that the city and the port have a fuller conversation as to whether a policy should be established, amending or otherwise modifying the current airport overlay so that might be better considered in a comprehensive way rather than in a piecemeal way. But again, appreciate the comments, and I will look more carefully at the material once I receive it.
If I may, I completely agree with that. Our documentation with the city and conversations, we've identified the fact that the existing code is out of compliance by 14 years. The city's response has been that it will await an updated comprehensive plan update. That process is in place. I have personally testified before that committee to go ahead and ensure that the code is updated. But in the meantime, this is the best we can do. The city's response, and I understand it, is that they are evaluating based upon their current code, not on what other state guidelines, non-regulatory that they might require. And until we and additionally, it can only be a voluntary compliance among the developer until such times as we have a hearing examiner opportunity. And this has been the first hearing examiner opportunity to bring this issue up. And so as a result, that was the opportunity before us. So
understood. Yeah, thank you. Mr. Baruch, do you show any others who may wish to be heard on this hearing?
No, that is everybody online and in person. Yeah.
And so that gets us back to the city for an opportunity to respond. If the city would like to respond to any of the public testimony, including the ports, Mr. Baruch, this is your opportunity.
I don't really have anything to add other than your recollection is true to what we have stated in the past as it relates to the other project off of Tumwater Boulevard, and the same would apply here. The city doesn't have the updated code requirement or the code requirement, I guess, to apply the Zone 6 or a navigation easement as a condition of approval, as it's not a code requirement at this time. There are other provisions that do protect the port that are already in our ordinance, like our height requirements are only 40 feet within this zone district. So that does, put it well below, any interference that would occur with the port operations. Additionally, we do have a dark sky lighting ordinance, which means that there would be no uplighting associated with the development. It would all need to be downlit, and glare would be minimal off-site based off of our evaluation of the lighting with the development application.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to respond to, Mr. Baruch?
No, that is it.
Okay. And Mr. Carlson, you too are allowed an opportunity to respond to the public testimony. You've been asked to in piecemeal fashion already, but is there any comprehensive last responses the applicant would have to public comment?
Yeah, I'll just weigh in on the port's comments. Mr. Henderson was kind enough to call me this afternoon before hearing, indicating that he was going to be providing testimony, requesting that an additional condition be met in terms of the navigation easement ask from the Port of Olympia. I told him that I would have to respectfully object to that added condition. As noted, it's not statutorily required by city code. And the other thing is my client is out of country right now, and I'm not able to talk to him. I did indicate to Mr. Hendrickson that I would talk to my client when they got back into the country, and put him in contact with the port to see whether or not they can work something out.
Thank you. Anything else you want to respond to?
No, sir.
Okay. That concludes all testimony regarding this application, and I'm not going to render a full decision tonight. I'm going to render a partial one. I am going to approve the project, or I'm going to grant the required approval, but I'm still going to give consideration to my conditions before I render that fully. So yes, I'm approving the preliminary plan. I will want to see the materials presented by Mr. Hendrickson and give those a bit of thought before I render a complete decision and decide whether I add any additional conditions or not. So I would like to receive those right away so I can complete that last review and then complete my decision. I'm rendering part of it tonight simply to let the applicant know that it's going to be approved, and that the only issue would be relative to this question. I don't envision adding any additional conditions of my own over those that have been proposed by the city, other than the question of that posed by the airport. So I will give that final consideration after I receive those materials, and then render a complete decision once I've done that. Again, that takes a while because it consists of a rather extensive set of factual findings, followed then by legal conclusions, which then support the decision itself. And so the actual written decision won't get underway, or won't be ready for probably till next week. But I will attend to that as quickly as I can once I have all the materials and can render a decision on all aspects of this. Any questions by either the city or the applicant?
The maps, the Tumwater School District maps, do you want me to email those to Mr. Baruch, or?
Yes, definitely. I thought that was already understood. If I didn't make that clear, I apologize for not making that clear. Yes, those are recognized as exhibits now, and so I very much need them as part of my record. So if you can do that promptly, that will be much appreciated.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we are adjourned as to our first hearing. Mr. Brook, do we need to go out of this and into something different?
Yes, there's a separate link provided for the next hearing. May I ask that we start that at 5:30, just for a short break?
That's
And
fine with me. So
okay,
we'll break for 5 minutes and then return at 5:30. Thank you.
sounds great. Thank you.